Good morning. The purpose of this panel, can you hear me? The purpose of this panel is not really a formal presentation, but rather exchanging ideas, discussing why would Africa be responsible. The purpose of Aapresid is looking to what is happening in Africa, working there, and that's why we want to hear from African reference to understand whether we can transfer our technology, our no-till system, to countries who are only just beginning to see production as one way out of their food crisis. The idea is questions and answers, but if you want to make a presentation, you can do that. If, Martin, you have something to present, do so. And as Gaston said, Martin comes from Nigeria. He is the right hand of Dr. Aapresid, who's the president of the bank. Martin is a genetist, and he lived in Colombia for 15 years, so he speaks Spanish. And we will ask him to make his presentation in Spanish so that we can all understand him. So, Martin, you take the floor first. I will try to speak Spanish, although it's been 9 years since I haven't spoken Spanish day in, day out, but I will try to speak in Spanish. The title of my presentation is How to Spread in Africa the Benefits of Conservation Agriculture. This is what is going on in Africa right now. You see that if we think of productivity, Africa is still the last frontier. You can see very clearly that the yields in corn, rice, soybean, and cocoa are the lowest in Africa. And you can also see that agriculture gives employment to a lot of people, but what contributes to the GDP is much less than in other countries when we compare with the percentage of people working in the agriculture system. So the African Bank decided to launch a program called Feed Africa, based on productive commodity chains. In the north is wheat, in the west is cassava, rice, sorghum in the driest areas, and in the west, corn, soybean, and also in the south. So the idea of Feed Africa is putting an end to extreme poverty, which you can find in many areas of Africa, putting an end to hunger, malnutrition, and the lack of food, and the production of food that amounts to 35 million nowadays. The first goal of this program is increasing productivity by introducing technologies, disseminating technologies. This program is called, for agricultural transformation, is called TAT, and it wants to work with all technology providers like research institutes like Aapresid or whatever institutes, so as to introduce, evaluate, and disseminate these technologies around as many farmers as possible. But the approach of Feed Africa aims to the savannas, because the savannas are the areas in Africa with the most land with the least use. Africa in all has 400 million hectares, so twice the size of the Cerrados in Brazil, and 25 countries, 239 million people there, and over half of them live in extreme poverty. And that's a good part of territory, of land, that is still not being used for the world. What are the characteristics of African savannas? It's like the savanna anywhere, in Brazil, in Thailand, wherever. In the tropics, soils are very poor. There's intense rains for 4 or 5 months a year, and this creates erosion. And also when there's no technology, there's no varieties, there's no knowledge about soil management. And so the probability, the likelihood of establishing crops is very low. And for the bank, this is exactly where we can have a major impact. And this is what happens when you use conventional agriculture in the African savannas. Degraded soils, naked soils that have been compacted and eroded, and clearly low yields. Corn yields is 2 metric tons per hectare. The same soybean is 1 ton per hectare. And in order to change this state of affairs, and also the fact that Africa is suffering from the effects of climate change, as you can see in this image, the red areas are the ones that are going to be most affected by climate change worldwide. Africa is where there's more red. It's been projected that in some 10 years or even less, agricultural yields, which are already low, will even go further down, and there will also be extreme climate effects, lots of precipitation and droughts. So if somebody wants to do something in Africa, it has to be something that will be sustainable and that will help mitigate those effects. The bank is now looking at agriculture from 4 stands, from 4 sides. First, making money, because people have to make money, because otherwise they will leave the country and go into the cities. And number 2, costs. Technology cost has to be competitive compared with the rest of the world. We cannot go on tilling at very high costs, high compared with the rest of the world. We also have to be environmentally friendly and preserve the soil capital. And also, we have to be socially inclusive of our people to reduce extreme poverty. And for us, conservation agriculture fits this in the most friendly way. What the bank is doing now is an initiative that is called Green Savannah Initiative, working with organizations like Aapresid or entities, organizations that have been there for many years, like working with them, with successful organizations. We have also talked to JICA about their experience in Brazil, which is long-standing, and their knowledge there, and also contacted AGRA for the green revolution in Africa. and all of the machinery and seed sectors, agrochemical sector, which all make up the ecosystem in a modern way of understanding it, working with them and also working with commercial farmers, people like WARC, Jorge, and we will now listen to what they are doing, but also working with farmers around this commercial farmer, so as to start adopting technologies to help cover our soil and increase our gains, our margins. And also, where there's technology, there should also be knowledge, so work with Embrapa, with INTA, with international centers, to look for solutions to answer questions that are going to come up from these kinds of work, of activities, and work with Uganda, Kenya, Ghana, DRC, which is the Congo, Zambia, CR, and Mozambique. Because these countries, the idea is for them to identify, to pick a site, a place, to do basic things, roads, and for people who would like to invest to come to these places, create also small farms to introduce technology, microtechnology, macrotechnology, conservation agriculture, to start to try doing things that will give margins and gains and everything that we're looking for. We are going to get started at one place to learn there in Ghana and try to avoid as many errors as possible. We will start working this year in Ghana. And it's very important to know that Africa is very diverse and that each country is going to have different things, different situations from a physical or economic stance. So this is why we have to work closely, in close relation with research centers and with governments as well. The advantage of the African Development Bank is that we are the African bank. That is, our countries are stockholders in our bank. They believe us, they support us, and they listen to us. When we ask them to establish policies to change things, they listen to us. And this is critical. The bank is going to be critical to disseminate conservation agriculture policies, because the policy in each country may vary. In some countries, the land belongs to the government. In other countries, it belongs to communities. But first, we need to have policies where the investment of the private sector will be safe. So the bank will be working with them to partner with a lot of people, with all of these people, to working with INTA here, with Embrapa in Brazil, working with Aapresid. I've been talking to Mr. Mofa and colleagues Tuesday, and the idea is introducing a more profitable agriculture, more sustainable agriculture, and more environmentally friendly, so that Africa will be able to tap on the potential of all that land, blessed lands that God has given us, both land and water, which is not so well known for the rest of the world. Thank you very much, and I apologize for my Spanish.
Gracias, Martín, y sobre todo por el esfuerzo de hablar en español, que sabemos que no siempre es fácil.
Thank you, Martin, especially for speaking in Spanish. Now we'll ask Jorge to tell us why they chose Africa, what WARC is, and what they have been doing and for how long. Good morning, everyone. I'm very thankful for being here. I have very feelings. First of all, happiness. I've just become a father, just had my child, and this is why I'm in Argentina. I'd like to thank Edgar, Pedro, Pilu. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to show what we're doing. How did I first get in touch with Aapresid? I worked here for many years, and as all Argentinian farmers, I've always been doing no-till, using all the technologies we have discussed here. And when I left, I was invited by Emiliano to provide advice for 30 days to work with him in his project. I spent 30 days there. I got in love with the place. Since I was a student, we've always talked about the potential of Africa. When I got there, I was able to see that it was absolutely true, even more than what we thought. After those 30 days, I called Pilu. I had met her before. She invited us for coffee, and since then, they have been a significant source of motivation. Both Pedro and Pilu have visited us in our farm. They encourage us to follow, they give us lots of energy, and we are convinced that the technological frontier of agriculture is here. So it's really we're resorting to everything you do here. Who are we? Emiliano left to Sierra Leone in 2011. He left all his personal projects and he went to Africa to produce rice. As Emiliano said, he didn't even know whether rice was a tree, a plant, or whatever. And in spite of that, he spent 3 years there. I joined him 3 years ago, and we started pushing Emiliano's project. We believe there is a new, smart agriculture model, and this is what Africa needs to leave their problems behind, poverty and hunger. But this has to be done so that it will be profitable for farmers. WARC is divided into 3 parts: production, consulting, and foundation. WARC production is in charge of reaching a new area, a new country, and setting a farm, such as the one we have here in Argentina, 500,000 hectares, whatever we can do. The minimum is 500 hectares for the whole technology investment to be cost-effective. And once we have technology, rotation, innovation, that we take from here to Africa, we start trying to extend the project to cover a larger number of farmers. We're a social company. We believe that WARC has to do something for the community wherever it is present. So the WARC Foundation is also present where we are present. We try to meet the community's demands. I'm going to give you the example of Sierra Leone. We have a training farm there. We call it training farm. And what do we do there? This is a picture of a field in the south of Sierra Leone. Our goal is to have corn, rice, soybeans, sunflower, and sorghum, but we're still trying other crops. Our goal is to set a farm going with rotation and with technology. In Sierra Leone, we have our project in the south, and we have also We also have 3 extension projects. With work consulting, we extend to other areas in the country so as to spread technologies we are already using. We are all familiar with this model because it is very well known in Argentina, but the big difference is that in Africa the extension concept is different. They get people together in a room. Imagine people can write or read. Imagine having them in a classroom for 2 hours, giving them lots of information. It makes no sense. It's a waste of time. So we took our extension model from Argentina to Sierra Leone. We get together with farmers, we appoint an extensionist, with local agricultural connectors, we disseminate information about technology. The training farm model has 3 pillars. First of all, people who work with us are trainees. During over a year, they work with us about no-till, fertilizers, pesticides, carrying capacity, crop rotation. So they spend a full year with us. We train that person over a full year, and over that year they also get a salary. Why is this salary important? Because these are all very small farmers. They don't even get to meet their basic needs. So by providing them with the salary, we help them focus on learning rather than on how to make ends meet. They come to work with us, they spend a full year with technology. Then there is HEAP, which is about involving more people from the farmer's environment and family, and the program supports farmers. They can access our services, our machines, as any service that is provided here in Argentina. The training farm model I was telling you involves the worker who is in touch with machines, pesticides, herbicides, all day long, and he gets a salary. By the end of the working day, this person goes back home and he is in touch with a lot of people in his household, and he starts producing in his own farm. So this is the first transfer we see, technology, knowledge transfer. People will go back home and tell their family what they learned with us. They would just spread corn like this and cover it, or they would have 3 seeds of corn per hole. When they saw that we were seeding in a row, we started seeing that the whole community was doing this, and this was due to knowledge transfer. They would see this in our farm, and they would take this back to their own farms. This year we added the HEAP program. Those people who were getting a salary, well, we asked them whether they wanted to devote 40% of their salary to pay for no-till services, agrochemicals, hybrids, etc. 40% of their income. And we said, well, let's offer this to them and see what happened. We thought they would accept, but 97% of those trainees accepted the new program. This was unexpected, and it showed that they trusted the way in which we were working. They were able to see results. We were harvesting 2, 3, 4 tons of rice, and they were able, and they wanted to take that technology to their own farms. And today, 97% of workers or trainees had their salary, and they also invested in this program. So the first thing we generated was social and food security for that household. In the past, when they would work on their own and their farm, they were not even able to meet their basic needs. Today, those needs are met. And as compared to the other farmers, the income for that household increased 6 times. So 97% of trainees said, I want to be there. And those who were not working with us also came and told us, I want to be included in this program. So we realized that we were motivating them. We were awakening them. We were able to transmit that energy. They would come and harvest 300. They had been harvesting 300 kilos of rice, and suddenly they saw that in the same field we were harvesting 2, 3, or 4 tons of rice, and same thing with corn. So we said, this encourages other farmers to do other things, to innovate, to acquire technology. So we decided to have satellite farms, which are a copy of our own farm, our own training farm in other parts of the country at a smaller scale. We share tractors, we share some technical people, some professionals. So in this way we're able to spread this out faster. Today we're reaching 30,000 farmers with a training farm, and we already have our 3rd satellite farm. How is learning reinforced? There is a significant behavior change. In Africa, farmer is associated with poverty. If you are born a farmer, you are doomed to die poor. This is something we see in all countries. If you are born a farmer, you will die poor. So this is why they migrate to cities, etc. But in this case, they see that they make more money, they can be profitable, so they change their mindset. They start having a businessman mindset. They start making more money and thinking about what they can do with that money. They see an increased yield, and we also help them to trade their goods. We are present in 9 countries in Africa, 2 in America, and other countries all over the world. Today we're mostly focused in Africa. On Africa, we provide consulting services. We start exploring all countries. Africa is like South America. Uruguay is one thing, Argentina is a different thing, Colombia is a different thing. This is exactly the same. We go with our consulting services, we start exploring the country, and we provide classic advice, such as in Argentina, a person with 2,000 hectares, we provide advice to them. We also work with associations or companies that may need to improve their yield, and from there we just try to implement our model. We are a young team. I'm the oldest person in the company. We have people from 12 different countries, 4 different continents, and from the best universities in the world. Even though 50% of our team are Argentinian, we believe in innovation and in technology, and we believe in introducing technology in Africa. We have people with different ways of thinking, and this is helping us. We want to be dynamic, and this is why we are young and innovators. The common goal of all of our projects in WARC is that we want farmers, small farmers, to access technology. We're convinced that that's the only way in which they can overcome poverty. We get the support of Fertili, Basali, Aapresid. We are convinced that we have to take everything that is being done here in Argentina to Africa. Thank you very much.
Bueno, la idea era tener un living de preguntas y respuestas.
Well, the idea was to have questions and answers now. And we have questions for Hugo.
We know that Argentina is present in Africa, has been there for many years. We know that the requirement of the African Bank is for sub-Saharan Africa, different countries from South Africa. In your function as the National Director of Machinery, do you think that we are in a position to work with them to understand the bank's needs? Before anything else, I'd like to thank Aapresid for the opportunity to be here. No doubt, because I come from a private industry, I've been connected for more than 7 years with INTA and with the Chamber of Agriculture Machinery, in particular in South Africa, but also in other African countries. I am very much interested in what I just heard. There's different alternatives. There's different countries with one commonality, which is hunger and the need to move from sustainability to a commercial agriculture, subsistence to commercial agriculture. It's a very valid goal, and it has a lot of merit as a project. And the Secretariat of the Ministry of Agro-Industry in Argentina have been working on different alternatives, because there's countless dispersed stakeholders. Maybe if we can bring them together, we can create some energy commonality there to try to interact in a faster or stronger way, to produce stronger and faster results. And we have been working in developing a program to develop a country brand name to be identified. We are well known because of our productive system and associative technology. Our machine manufacturers have major production, and we don't export more than 10% of what we manufacture. If we export abroad, we would also be generating jobs in our own country. So we need to expand on the one side, because we have the protection of a brand name, an international brand name, and number two, because we can work as an export consortium or some kind of organization that will bring together all of our different interests to push the cart forward. Naturally, the national state can provide a framework, but if the privates are not involved, that is manufacturers, Aapresid, INTA, and other organizations, it won't be possible. So I know that everybody has the right motivation, so I think it can be done. We started our contacts with the bank November last year, so not too long ago. The bank actually came to us. We formally traveled to Ivory Coast for a workshop, because the bank wanted us to make a presentation there, and then we toured the fields there, field visits. I follow their own line of thinking. They wanted me to organize a workshop, but I also took my PowerPoint, because if you don't know what no-till means, you think it's just seeding, but when you see what it really means, the change comes all by itself. So we met in India in May, and then from those meetings we walked our talk, and at the time the bank said they had a number of duties to undertake, and we had our own duties to undertake here in Argentina, where we came back. Our duties included looking for minimum 6 countries that would provide us with the security, the certainty, legally, socially, taxing-wise, etc., so that we would be safe and secure. And so the bank took care of that part. Which are the countries, Martin, that would give us warranty of having work today? In fact, we are picking countries that are politically stable, no civil wars, no terrorism. Countries like Ghana, for example, or Zambia, Mozambique, and countries that have extensive savannas. That is, countries where the agricultural policy is friendly. Not policies that make life more difficult, but rather friendly to agriculture, countries that don't have very high taxes to inputs that need to be imported, machinery, etc., where the registration of fertilizers or herbicides would be easy. So that's how we decided to start with Ghana, because it's very proactive towards agriculture and politically it's very stable. Thank you, Martin. Jorge, you picked Sierra Leone because, well, because you knew, what you wanted when you left. But now you've had an experience after 3 years. So what is the potential there for, to bring things from Argentina? Because when we traveled there, we recognize, we acknowledge that we did some things that were not right. We've learned from our errors, and now we want to take the qualitative leap. How do you see our no-till system entering there with our technology, where fine monitoring technology, sustainable, economically, environmentally, and socially? Well, this is the big thing in Africa, because it's not just having the possibility or whether you can do it. I think we have the obligation to do this. It's a duty. What I saw in Africa, or from what I've seen, there hasn't been a green revolution there, so we have to move directly, take a leap onto the brown revolution. There's no probability, no likelihood of doing this in any other way. It's very sensitive areas where where man has to act with responsibility. If we don't do this, we will lose those soils. It happened in Kenya, it happened in, Martin talked about Nigeria. The savannah is very fragile, and with no-till, we have the obligation as a country to take this to Africa, because it's the only way we will be able to save those environments. So it's not just economics. There's a humanitarian reason to do this, so that all these fields Martin has described could go on to no-till in a sustainable way. I did not mention at the beginning, you saw it on the program, that Dzugala was announced for this panel. Gustavo Dzugala was an ambassador in Nigeria for many years. He came back in April. But Gustavo talked to me today on the phone. He was very sorry that he could not come, but he had a sciatic problem and was unable to move and come. So many years in Africa, he said to me, and now that I'm back in my own homeland, I cannot move and come to something that I was very happy to come and talk. Anyway, the question of opening new embassies with new attaches, do you have any information in this regard? We have an embassy in most African countries. We are actively working with the new Mozambique embassy and Angola as well, and South Africa in particular. And we are thinking that the whole of the African continent will depend on 2 or 3 embassies with 1 agricultural attaché only, and I think this will be defined in the coming 2-3 months. We have room in those embassies for the attaché to be there, to stay there, and we were thinking of a joint training effort. All of this will have to be put together for the best. Martin, again. I have not seen any questions from the audience. If you have them, please start posing them, because otherwise we'll run out of time and you won't have the chance. We started with this project that we called Pioneer Project in India. Now the bank is calling it the Green Savannah Initiative in Africa. When we saw what the bank presented, I don't know if you saw the figures that he presented, but it's 400 million hectares in savannas, taking out national parks and biological areas or urban settlements. So it's 400 million hectares where there's nothing. Nothing has ever been done there. So the percentage of subsistence farmers is minimal, and we always think it's difficult to colonize, but the advantage here is that we are not going to struggle against paradigms, but we are beginning from scratch there. So what steps has the bank foreseen to meet your goals? Edgar, if you look worldwide, and you mentioned whatever technology, maize, hybrids, all the way to conservation agriculture, everything always starts little by little. It's like an S-shaped movement, you know, and then more people get involved, and the S goes up, more people are coming, and it becomes a vertical movement in the S, and then finally adoption starts going down, the other part of the S. So it's always like this anywhere. And you can always have a chance to improve your margins, your gains, improve productivity, and people see this, and when they see this, you know, it's an incentive for more people to join. So we started with 100,000 hectares in Ghana, and all of the workers, your suppliers, WARC, etc. But then we will invite other countries to join after 2-3 years, so that they can see what was done in Ghana. And in time, this will become, it's not like a cancer, I don't want to say that, but it's like radiation. And I'm thinking of 8 years. First 100,000 hectares, then the next 100,000 hectares in 8 countries, and then 500,000 in 1 country, and then in the 8 countries, and finally we'll end up with 6 million, whatever. So the goal the bank has is 50 more million tons of corn, 20 more million tons of soybean in 2025, and we are thinking of 16 million hectares. If we come to 8, that would be great already. And now, Hugo, when we brought this idea up, and like everything else, when there's an idea, people always come up and say, you're crazy, this is impossible. And then people start thinking about it, and they see the whys and the hows. And when you went there, it's like, teaching a lot of people to produce soybean, and then where are we going to sell ours? There's always people who think in these terms, a very egotistical way, selfish way to do things. But Africa started creating a demand. It's going to start eating animal protein, and what we thought was that if we did not teach them, they would go to some other country, a neighboring country to Argentina. So that is not a threat for us, it's an opportunity. That's how we saw it. Hugo, it's clear that here we are working on value added, and clearly machinery has a lot of value added, and machinery is not just the machine but also services and spares, and because the machine won't work by itself for long. So also knowing what how to use the machine as well. So there's a lot of things around machinery. How do you see the possibility of working with the extension team of INTA or the ministry and its secretaries to work along this initiative? And thinking of value added and of creating more potential, not just by teaching them to produce raw materials, but also teaching Africa or giving Africa the possibility of value-added creation. Obviously, there's prejudices like you commented right now, but I share with you the perspective that we have the technology and our innovative spirit as Argentines, as manufacturers, as farmers and professionals will always take us one step forward at all times. If we talk of production of grains and any connected technology, but no doubt we have to start working on value adding in our primary production. So our secretary and two undersecretaries, biotech and foods undersecretaries, we are working for this, in this direction, in orienting undertakings, associations of farmers to start producing and adding value in the origin. So that's a challenge that we have to face. I do not think that this is letting other people know that there's a niche there, but rather adding more demand. We know that the world market is growing enormously, and we know that Africa has 400 million hectares that are crop land, and that is an opportunity from the humanitarian stance and also commercially. So nobody could think this is poor business. Jorge, you're moving your head. Are you saying yes or no? We've heard this expression of letting others know that there's a special niche there that only us could tap. No, Sierra Leone today is a dead economy, no consumption likelihood there. More than 70% of those countries cannot buy anything from you. But if you develop them, as I explained, a subsistence farmer would never buy anything from you. Now he has some extra cash, and that's another business opportunity. I mean, everything is square there. And also, apart from the humanitarian duty that Argentina has, Aapresid is only just beginning to share technology. Why not doing that in Africa as well? The rest is a fallacy, and it's damaging, harmful. And also, because we never did say this, and because maybe we think everybody knows, but when we talk about a bank, one tends to think it's a commercial bank. It's not a trading bank. It's It's the younger brother of the World Bank, of the IDB here in South America. It's a bank that lends money to countries in Africa. It can lend money to other commercial trading banks to finance, to fund opportunities and initiatives. So when we had the chance to tour Ivory Coast, we visited major farmers there, who consume corn, but it's 2-ton corns. And when the bank asked those farmers what they needed, the farmers said the bank should marshal production projects for irrigation systems because they could not get better yields because of lack of water. So we also saw that their plows were not so good, and the way they tilled the soil was not good, etc. And they get 800 millimeters in average of rain, but they can get better yields even with that. So doing irrigation systems for that level of production was useless, we said to the bank, because it would be useful with more than 12 tons, but at that stage no way it would be profitable. So we thought that our system had an opportunity there. The bank has the chance to work in agreements with countries and also the banks with companies who are already working there. Martin, are those companies receptive in the sense that would they be open to agreements with Argentina, with Argentine technicians to start transferring knowledge to companies that are already there? There's 2 branches here. The one that gives loans to countries, but also loans to the private sector. No, we can't hear. So, I was saying that the bank may make loans to the private and public sectors. Loans to the private sector are normally larger, but an advantage the bank has here is they have access to climate change funds, green climate funds, and the bank may use this in order to cut down the cost of money, the interest rate of many countries that is usually high. But more specifically to your question, what the bank can do is facilitate the entrance of companies to get land, to talk to governments, to get favorable proposals, and also something very important is getting records of those inputs that you want to import. What we have seen in Africa is that you always think that agriculture is a social sector. No. The bank wants to change this mentality. It's not a social purpose that agriculture has. They may become large companies and be successful individuals, and by doing that, by creating that, of course you are changing social aspects, but it's just like any other sector. It's commercial, it's banking, it has to be like this. Agriculture has to be like this. You have to make money with it and become profitable. I have a question for you again, Martin. I would like for you to answer it. Why South Africa is not one of the main countries involved in this?
En esta primera parte, nuestro Sudáfrica no está involucrado, ¿no?
Not involved in this first stage because South Africa
con un sector
is
agrícola
a country with a well-developed farming sector. They're not involved because we're trying to introduce commercial agriculture in other countries. In South Africa, there are thousands of commercial farmers who are very successful, and I don't think they need to be part of this. Another question. If you have a question to be answered by a specific speaker, please let us know who it is. Which has been the main challenge you've had to face? I guess this is for you. I'd like to say it's only one. My brother was hijacked in Africa, so he can talk about challenges. We face frustrations, new frustrations and challenges every day. From having an import of a cedar blocked, extreme cases such as what happened to my brother. But we face challenges every day. Edgar, you've seen this, convincing people to stop using colders when they've been using this for ages. I think it's a matter of facing challenges every day. You have to approach issues from different angles because you have to change people's mindsets. We're taking technology and innovation, state-of-the-art technology, and having it adopted by people who do not know what they will eat every day is really very challenging. What type of soils do you have there? Well, as I said in my presentation, Africa is like America. We have all types of soils. In Sierra Leone, we have soil with over 10% of organic matter. I've never seen this quality. And there are other soils with only 30-40 centimeters, with lots of rainfall. In Nigeria, you have pH issues. You have a bit of everything. Most of the Savannah is high-quality soil. We know that all soils are different, but the restriction is not the soil at all. We're harvesting over 8 tons of rice with no issues with that. And there is a lot of soil. Then there are other more challenging places. Argentinians are used to that. This is our world. In some places, it's more rainfall, less rainfall, but all soils are good for agriculture. There's another question, and I'll try to answer it. How do you see anti-transgenic legislation looking forward? We've already said that South Africa is not part of this new initiative for now, but there are some African countries. Well, let's say that Africa still carries the influence of colonizers. You have French speakers, all the colonies that used to be French and eventually became independent. There is the English-speaking part. It used to be colonies, English colonies. Most of them became independent in the 60s. Imagine, as a republic, we still have problems after 200 years. Imagine they've only been independent for 40 years. We met the Argentinian ambassador in Nairobi. We met Kenyan president, and after the dinner was over, he told us, do you realize that we've just had dinner with the son of San Martin, the person who made Kenya independent? So everything is quite new. Some countries, such as Kenya, are already deregulated. Other countries have the supporting legislation, even though the law has not yet been enforced. There are many tariff barriers, especially those with European influence, such as the ones we see in French-speaking countries. It's a matter of time. You have to work with governments. You have to go slowly. We don't want to impose anything, but there are some countries where we can work, in other countries we can't. And we have to take the germplasm that matches every country's needs. Is there anything you'd like to add about transgenics? As you
como
may
ustedes
know,
saben,
in
en
Africa,
África siempre hay un muy importante presencia
we have a
de los
strong presence
de la gente
of
que están contra
people
los
who
GM.
are
Pero
against
sin embargo,
GMs.
hay
Other
países como
countries such as
Kenia,
Kenya,
países como
Nigeria,
Nigeria, países como
Ghana,
Ghana ahora, países como
Burkina
Burkina
Faso,
Faso y
and
Uganda que ya
Uganda.
tienen leyes que
Those
permiten
countries
la
already
siembra
have
comercial
laws that
de GM,
allow
¿no?
for
Entonces, va poco a poco,
GM
y la gente va
seeding, GM use.
entendiendo
Slowly,
que
people
todo lo que dices contra
understand
los GM es
that
cierto.
the information
Yo
they have about
yo también
GM
soy
is not true.
genetista
I'm a
y he
genetist,
trabajado cuando estuve en
and
los
when I
Estados
was in the
Unidos
United
para
States,
entrar
I
a
worked
Nigeria.
hard to take GMs to
Mire,
Nigeria.
20%
20% of the
del país
country
nunca
will
te va a
never be
convencer
convinced
porque
because
ellos
they
creen
believe
que
that
los GM
GMs are
son malos,
bad,
son veneno y todo
poison.
eso. Otro
Another
20%
20% are
son
pro-GMs,
pro-GM
and they think that
y es la que
GMs are
piensan
very
importante.
important.
Son los
And the
60%
remaining
del centro
60%
que ni creen
neither
ni saben
believe nor
y es que hay que
know
siempre tratar de
what they are about. You have to try
predicar
to preach or
o de explicar
educate
bien
people
cuáles las
about the
ventajas sobre la
advantages,
conservación del
considering
suelo, la conservación
soil
si demostró en el suelo. Esas partes
condition.
en África
That
esa
is
la
the
batalla.
battle we have to
Y
fight,
el banco
and
está trabajando
bank
con
is
fundaciones
working
como
with
el
foundations
IETF
such
en
as
Nairobi para
IETF
tratar
in
de
Nairobi
explicarle más y más, pero está
to
convencido
explain
que
things to people in
en
Nairobi.
unos 10 años más van a haber mucho más eventos de GM. En el
Right
momento
now
hay
there
eventos
are
de algodón en Burkina Faso,
cotton
que ya está comercial. Bueno,
events in Burkina
Sudáfrica
Faso,
hay
in South
eventos
Africa.
de maíz,
There's
que ya
corn,
están también liberados. Y en
GM
Nigeria hay
corn.
dos
In Nigeria there are
cultivos,
two
uno de
crops.
cowpea,
One is
que es
cowpea, which is
frijol de
black
ojo
bean,
negro, que en 1 o
and
2
in 1
años
or 2
van a
years'
también
time
ser
this will
liberado.
be
También sí hay la
released
yuca
as well. There's also juke
más contenido
with
de
higher
vitamina A, de
vitamin
vitamina
A content.
en
In
En
Kenya
Kenia hay de
there is
maíz,
corn,
porque poco
so
a
very
poco
gradually and
es que
slowly
es como una batalla, poco a poco uno
you
va ganando
move
las
forward
bases de la gente y también van entrando
and
tecnología.
people start using this technology. Thank you, Marty. There are no more questions from the audience, but I'd like to tell you the following. I think there is a question from the audience. Is there a mic available? Go ahead. What is the social organization of the different African countries? What about power supply, energy, and marketing of raw material?
Depende que le pueda responder, vamos, pregunta esa sí me parece que es más para desglosarlo un poco.
I think we should break down this question. Who owns the land in Africa? Well, it varies. In some countries, such as Nigeria, the land is owned by the government. The government gives you a deed. In other countries, such as Mozambique, the land is owned by the communities. They are the ones who can sell. It's actually not selling, but giving the use of the land for 99 years. It's different in the different countries, but what the bank is doing is working with the countries so that it will be similar to what you see in the rest of the world. The land should be exchanged and used as a collateral for loans, so that land can be used as it is used in any other part of the world. As regards marketing of products, Well, as Martin said, today Africa imports all its food, so we have everything. So everything we produce can be sold easily, and we are working in a kind of Mercosur area that includes Nigeria, and in Nigeria we can produce for 20 years and will never be able to meet its full needs. So demand is there, there's no problem with that, and we're starting to produce animal protein with corn, etc. And the market is just there, you don't have to go and get it, it's just there. Are there other questions? There was a question about energy. Well, I can talk about my experience. There's no energy where I was. There's no energy, no power supply. In Sierra Leone, we have power dams. We use generators. It's like what happened when we were kids and we go out to the farms. You have to, everyone does his or her best. We have to build our own solutions. A lot of progress has been made. Since I arrived, lots of changes have been made. You see the changes already, but it's something to be solved. As regards marketing, since these countries are food importers, what they pay for products is Chicago plus freight. So there's an interesting price differential if you are to produce in the country. Of course, it will take many years for this to change, but this is the situation today. Last month, at the meeting of Aapresid's board, we decided to launch a new program. You know, the Sistema Chakras is a program, there's the regional program, certified agriculture program, etc. We have decided to launch a new program, which is international assistance, because we're getting demand from other countries for Argentinian technology. We don't want to become a lost patrologist. We go, do our job, and come back. The bank already knows this. Going to preach with the Bible is not a role. So we decided to set up a framework to motivate Argentinian companies and professionals who want to support us to join this program so that we can be strong enough for these changes to happen. If we go as a country, as an organization, it will be much easier. We will see results much faster because synergy will be huge. If we go there individually, we can run risks or we can fail, and we know it is very difficult to stand up again when you're far from home. Today, the bank can assure certain countries and regions. When Jorge and his brother went there, this did not exist, and this is why they had security problems. Today, we know that we have security problems even in Argentina, but when you go to countries where the government is committed to doing things, it is different. Last year we visited Kenya, and they were just about to finish building railways from Mombasa to Nairobi. That train is already operating. So we see that Africa has started to demand things. This will not stop, and the big challenge is whether we are ready to help them from Argentina. The goal of this panel was to show or to encourage you to answer this question, but I'd like you to go home and take this idea and ask yourself whether this can be done or not. In order to conclude, I'd like to tell you that we wanted to sign a letter of intent between Aapresid and the bank, because people go by, but institutions stay. We know this long-term work with the bank. We know that this is the only way in which things can be done, through agreements among all players. So we want to start working with this letter through which we will become advisors to the bank, and the bank, in turn, will support us so that we can show what we can do. Obviously, our goal is not to sell smoke, but to work so as to generate results. I'm not sure whether Pedro is here, but otherwise the letter will be signed at Aapresid stand after this session is over. Thank you, Martin, for speaking in Spanish, and next time I will teach you to speak in Córdoba language. Thank you very much, everyone.